Michael Mautner.
Thanks. First, thanks for letting me talk to the council and make some points. I am a research scientist and also an environmental activist, previously in the States and now here in Christchurch. And I'm also presently on the board of the Port Hills Park Trust, which manages Mount Vernon. So I have some interest in the interaction of the hills with the rest of the city. So I'd just like to make a few comments, mostly relating to environmental issues. Now, the first environmental issue that we are all very well aware of course, is climate change, and especially when we are talking about long-term plans that could be, years and decades into the future. Climate change is likely to affect every aspect of life in Christchurch and everywhere else. And so I think that there should be a deliberate policy of the council to consider climate change explicitly in every major decision or planning that you do, especially for the long term. One aspect that is important on the long term is conservation land. And I know that the City Council has a shortage of funds like everybody else. I would still like to recommend that, if possible, for the City Council to buy as much land of conservation value as possible, because funds, money in the bank, it comes and goes, but if you buy a piece of land, that will belong to the public for generations. So it's very important to invest in that as possible. An example is, I understand that near the top of Mount Herbert, land will become available for purchase. And this is a very special area around here. And it should be actually in public ownership if possible. So I would recommend when it comes up that you pay attention to that. Now, another general aspect of importance is to preserve biodiversity. And for example, this can be helped by planting native plants, local Banks Peninsula plant species in gullies and around in hillsides in any of the lands that the council has control over around Christchurch and the Banks Peninsula. Because if these gullies are planted, that can stop or reduce the transmission of sediment and also chemicals and so on from the hills to the waterways, including the Heathcote River. Another way to serve biodiversity is maybe to educate the public kind of in a more intense way about planting just local native plants, and especially endangered species, make these plantings, use them in backyards and in gardens around the city. They can be very decorative and they are very appropriate to preserve that way. And finally, another issue that is probably not very well known, again back to climate change. We all know about greenhouse gases, and the sources, one of the important sources of greenhouse gases, which is not well recognized, is carbon, organic carbon that preserved in soils. Actually, around the world, soil has more organic carbon or more carbon than the oceans or the atmosphere. So it's a primary source of greenhouse gases, and to the extent possible, it requires more study, especially the grasslands, the mechanism of grasslands storing and emitting carbon is something that's very important, and including in this area. So I recommend more research, more attention to that aspect if possible, so that we can reduce these emissions from the soil carbon. Even a small fraction of the soil carbon, if it's emitted, because there is so much of it, can make a major effect.
Well, look, thank you very much. And I mean, obviously, all our ears pricked up when you said that Mount Herbert could potentially be on the market. So, you know, I mean, I'm sure you're sufficiently well connected to give us a heads up.
Well, it's kind of hearsay, but from you know, believable sources. And
we'll do some investigation from this end. But if you do hear of anything that you know, please give us a heads up, because obviously that's something that the council would want to seriously consider.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.